Okay, welcome everybody to tonight's Community Leadership Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It's the first meeting of the new council year, so welcome back to some members and a special welcome to Councillor Platt. Nice to see you, Mark. Hopefully you'll enjoy. So item number 1 is apologies for absence and substitutions.
Thank you, Chairman. We've got apologies from Councillor Barrett and from Councillor Oxley.
Thank you. I would just like to these questions on notice to pursuant of Council Procedure Rule number 38.
Chairman, there are no questions.
Okay, thank you. So tonight it's just a one item agenda, which is basically the review of the work programme. We had hoped to have a presentation by the Coastal Communities Unit, but unfortunately we weren't able to arrange that. But I believe we are going to look to reschedule as we get further into the work programme. So on A1, just to give the background, which is pretty straightforward, and bearing in mind the development review was back in 2021, and although we will be referring to some of the recommendations made at that time, we will be looking to move on and maybe make our own recommendations on how we bring our activities forward to maintain the scrutiny and also the pressure we had on last year. Because the further strengthening of the annual process, and I think what we're going to be looking to do is to build on the work which we did last year. We did some really good task and finish. We had the education, and also we had the transport, which were the 2 task and finish groups. But also we did the follow-up to the dentistry and a couple of other items as well. So I think we've really got to keep that pressure on. Councillor Platt.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's interesting to see the work that you've done previously. Are there reports available on those particular items?
On the task and finish groups? Yep.
So, any chance of that being circulated or sent to me? So
Especially for yourself. So.
Thank you.
And it was presented to Cabinet, and I think we had some good responses back from Cabinet as well. So maybe we can make reference to when it did go to Cabinet, and then sort of, and obviously it was on the recording as well, so you could actually see some of the comments which we got.
Thank you, Chairman. Are you aware of any outcomes from it going to Cabinet? Were there any on those reports when they went to Cabinet?
Yeah, I would say it was quite. Once you get the reports, you'll see the recommendations, and also a lot of work which went into it, and obviously with the task and finish, like the education, for instance, was led by Councillor Barrett, Terry, and he come forward with a really good recommendations and report. On the transport, we did a lot with the community transport, and also like the helping hands and all that as well. Carrie, Councillor Doyle, and myself, we rode shotgun on the Clacton to Colchester hopper as well, and I would sort of recommend that to anybody really. It was a real eye opener on the service which is given. So yeah, I would recommend, once you get the report, if there's any further information you need, just give us a shout, and we'll go through it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And could we then include with the report any outcomes that Cabinet took from those reports?
Well, sorry.
Just just to say, Appendix B starts at page 17. It does set out the recommendations arising from those two task and finish groups, and the second column there indicates when they went to Cabinet and the response of Cabinet to those. I certainly think it would be the committee's wish at some point to receive an update of the gender briefing on those steps, on the basis that Cabinet was accepting, agreeing with those recommendations, that therefore there's an opportunity for this committee to just make sure that certain actions have taken place as a consequence of those recommendations. It may not be quite now, but certainly in the autumn, early winter, probably a chance to say, just give us an update on those. Certainly for the education one, on the January cycle. Because what information that would be.
Thank you very much for that. So I read that and I saw the Cabinet member's response in it. You know, it mentions I welcome, I support, I look forward to, but equally the follow-up work required and to the column to the right is blank. So that's why I was interested in what outcomes there may have been from the hard work that this committee did. Thank you.
Developing the work programme, which is what we're going to do tonight, and the review of the recommendations made, and probably moving on from what Councillor Platt said, and reviewing how the recommendations have been made and the impact of those recommendations. Over on the other page, work programme for 24-25, and just really we've got the four. Again, the review undertaken, greater use of task and finish groups, which I think we've done. Improved agenda planning and management, which we've tried to do. We tried to slim it down and keep it focused. Considering how to engage with the public in the work of the overview and scrutiny. So we've done some consultation work with that, and also we did do a press release as well to advertise the fact that what we've been doing as scrutiny, the two scrutiny committees. So, and then to perform the other role, overview and scrutiny and its functions, obviously community leadership. But again, it's interesting, like we've got community safety there, which when we done the visit to the police station, which again was very informative, and we will be having a couple of items on the work programme to further that. Health and wellbeing, we've done a good bit of work on dentistry, and we will be bringing those back in the new year as well. And then economy skills and educational attainment, we will be doing another bit of work on education. So that will all be ongoing. And then obviously going through the rest of it, which is obviously the corporate plan. And we've got the annual report, which you've got the first draft of. So I think there's a couple of things still to go on to that, especially for the other scrutiny committee under Councillor Honeywood. But that is just a first draft at the moment. So as we move on to the actual for inquiries to be undertaken in 24-25. So again, improving access to dentistry for residents in tendering.
Before we move into the actual detail, it probably is worth saying that to get to this stage, there was consultation with the public and with partner organisations, community groups were invited to submit suggestions. They then, when they came in, were then submitted to an informal meeting of the committee, who looked at them, thought about the prioritisation of work that this committee could undertake in 24-25, and that's what you have in front of you, is the distillation of that process that you as a committee have looked at, albeit in an informal sense. So it's presented to you for consideration on the basis that a report needs to go to the 6th of August meeting of full council, because under the Constitution, it's full council which will effectively determine the work programmes for the two committees. So that's the process that we're in, and why you've got the details set out at Appendix A. I'll hand over back to you in relation to Appendix A.
Yep. Okay. So obviously, the first one is the improving the access of dentists for residents in Tendring.
Apologies, Chairman. I appreciate I'm new here. So I understand this correctly. This is a look back at what's been done, or this is a going forward? Because
this is a look forward.
This is a look forward.
And but what's the dentistry item has been on the last 2 years. So effectively, the intention would be to keep it on the work programme for a 3rd year, right, in the form of an inquiry through a committee meeting. So it's a relatively limited, relatively restricted opportunity to look at the subject matter, but does at least mean that there is that opportunity to hear what the ICB, as it is now, is doing in relation to dentistry. So year 1, it was still under NHS England, but coming to the end of their direct responsibility for commissioning NHS dentistry across England, including here. Next year, or the year just passed, the ICB had just taken control, and it's effectively earlier this year they'd had almost 1 year worth of activity, having been responsible for it. And so it was a case of, well, we heard about your initial proposals for adjustments to NHS dentistry within the existing NHS dentistry contract, which they admitted they couldn't themselves adjust. That was set nationally. But what they could do around that and supporting provision for access to NHS dentistry, they came back and told the committee about what they had done. And the committee also relayed to them the continuing experience of people locally and their experiences of inaccessible, not being able to access NHS dentistry. And they've also got plans for the coming year. And so again, the intention would be to get them back early next year. And again, just hold them to account for what they said they were hoping to achieve, and are they achieving it? And bearing in mind a number of those changes were about providing access to NHS dentists for those in particular need, so not understanding they couldn't generally make a total difference, and a transformational improvement to NHS dentistry. What they were doing were the numbers going through that discrete mechanism of those most in need. What were the numbers? Did it improve things? What happened with the stabilisation of the oral health in those particular cases? So that's the intention behind the third, this in here on the
work programme. Thank you very much for that clarification. So part of the reason I'm confused is on the other document, it mentions about the dentistry, and then it's got completed. So that's completed. Which potential? Where it says here work programme.
Oh, work programme. Yeah. Okay.
It says completed. So, and yet the other document says we're looking at it again in April.
Yeah, I think that's just a reflection on the fact that it's a discrete piece of each work programme is a discrete piece of work. So the work in 2023-24 on dentistry work programme item on the work for the committee has been completed.
Right.
But as you say, we also need to recommend, and maybe that's a point that we need to pick up in the annual report. So there isn't that somebody picking it up doesn't see the same jarring position that you see.
Yeah.
That actually we point out, yes, it was completed, but we're revisiting that in 24-25.
I think also it is sort of one of those things, keeping it live, because certainly, I've been on myself, you're something on the agenda and then it sort of disappears, and you never really know what was the end result of it. What was very interesting, which I found from that meeting, was the work done by Essex University. So as you can see, one of the things we're looking to do is to be able to go there and to see the people in training, to see what they can access. And just an aside, it was very interesting to know that someone wanted to be an hygienist. But then again, as they get into, there was a flexibility. They could actually go on to become a dentist, and vice versa. Someone who's been a dentist, then hang on, I don't really want to do that. I'll be a hygienist. So the flexibility which was brought over, and that was different from the first year when we had them here. And I felt, I don't know how the other members felt, I felt it was quite positive in what they brought forward. But I'm thinking we're just keeping it live and just sort of, because I think it's going to be an ongoing issue probably over the years.
So maybe we change the jargon there, Chairman, from completed to
ongoing. As I say, that is just a draft. So once we get that done,
thank you.
We'll bring that up.
Apologies.
Okay, so time. Sorry, Chris was first. Sorry, Tony. Yep.
Dentists no private because of no availability.
Yeah.
The concern is people are of the opinion that Tenyon District Council has some sort of input in funding or the costing of doing this. And whilst I understand that we're a stakeholder and a partner, we're writing these reports to Cabinet. We don't have the funding. We're not in control of the actual policy. And if it's going wrong, we're almost taking the blame for, shall we say, the lack of national health dentists in Clacton. By sitting here discussing something that in real terms we have very limited input with. So the question is on this one, well, it's very nice, we can put reports to Cabinet. What real action can we actually bring to bear? And how are we actually influencing the decision makers to get a change here? Because over the last 2 years, I've seen very little change in Clacton, and if anything, the situation appears to be getting worse.
Here, when we had the two, Professor Nick Baker and the other, and they were a lot more positive, because if you think they took it over the year before, so it's all a matter of progression. I think we should still keep it on the work programme, because obviously nationally there's issues with dentistry, which is brought up during the election. So I would guess that, let's have a look at it and let's review it. And then if we come to the decision that we can't really make a worthwhile contribution, then we'll have to review what we're doing.
Would it be possible as a and outlines the issues that we've got here and ask for some time scale regarding when we can see it fixed? Because I think if we did that, at least we could be seen to be positive and that we're actually being proactive. Otherwise, we've got lots of nice reports where the portfolio holder is thanking us for our work and talking to lots of interesting people. But what we really need is for the leader of the council to say, well, hang on a minute, nothing seems to have changed in the last 2 years. Let's write to the government minister or whoever it is responsible, see if we can get some sort of timescale of when things are liable to change.
Yeah. Tanya.
building more houses, doctors, no dentists. I was missing five happy carriers. Whilst this is all very nice to have, we still haven't got any more dentists. People are still pulling their own teeth out. And also I noticed that on the improving access to NHS dentistry, what we don't have is pensioners on pension credit. Is that something could be added, or is this set in stone now? Because I think that's a huge one for pensioners that have got no money at all. You still have to pay unless you're on pension credit. So the only way you get free dentistry as a pensioner is if you get pension credit, and quite a lot of people I know are in quite a tricky situation and spending thousands out on dental care that they can barely afford. So yeah, I mean, I do concur with Chris. We do need maybe to be a bit more pushy. But we need to be pushing to get more dentists. We need to be perhaps not being quite so, I hate to say this, but maybe not quite so nice, holding people's feet to the candle and saying, why? This is all very lovely and we really like you and you're really super people and you're saying all the right things, but actually all of those words are not being, we're not getting action. You know, you're not getting, there isn't any more from the meeting that we had before. There are no more dentists, there are no more places. So we are still technically in the same position as we were before.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick one really. First time that they presented their dentistry to us, they'd only just taken over. But they had just a plan in their heads of what they wanted to do. The second year they came, that plan was formed. And as far as I saw it, that this now coming, that will come to fruition. And I think we've got a right to see that through. You've got a 3-year plan. And the other thing I will say is, we've now got to change the government, which it completely might change anyway. The whole thing might change. But yeah, but what I'm saying is, before we say what we want to do, I personally think we should leave it on the table and see what they come back with. And if they don't come back with what we think is right, that's the time we then act.
I thought I was loud enough. Whilst I completely concur with you, we're still 2 years on and actually things haven't improved. There might be lovely plans and everything like that, but we're still on the ground not seeing any change.
Sorry, we haven't got the data that says there hasn't been any more investment in dental health since we last met with people, have we? So I haven't seen any data to say that it stayed the same or it's improved. So I think it's a little bit harsh in a way to be holding people's feet to the candle, or whatever that expression is, when we don't know what's going on. And having come from a healthcare background, things do move slowly. They do. And I'm not saying that should just be accepted, but we've got a change in government, as Bill said. Things are changing. We need the data to back up us saying that nothing has changed. We need the data to back that up, because we don't know, do we? We hear things from our residents that raise issues, but where is the solid data that says things have slightly improved and we're on a trajectory out of the situation that has been caused by lots of different things?
What I will go back to say, we was here with the first presentation, and it was the fans were there, what they wanted to do, and then the second one, they've achieved quite a lot of it. All right, we might not have dentists, but they did tell us that they're training dentists at Essex University. Will they train in this year? Are they coming into the system next year? We won't know until they come back, will we?
So, thank you, Chairman. So, okay, so on that, I've not been here, so, according to the plan, we're not due to see them until April. So as chairman of the committee, why don't you write to them and ask them for an interim report, which would provide evidence to us one way or the other as to whether they've increased or whether they've decreased. And that way we'll be able to gather information from that report and be well set for when they arrive in April. I appreciate that on the actual report it says that it's going to provide us with X, Y, and Z, but why wait? Why not do that now, following this discussion, circulate that around the committee, and then at least we'll know. And then if we've got any other pertinent questions, we can go back through yourself, and that way we should have a very good, productive meeting back in April.
Well, Chairman, I was just going to suggest that, the mechanism for that is to request an off-agenda briefing. So that seems to be, we can ask for a briefing to be circulated in September, then and then you're actually having them at the meeting in April. I would say to members of the committee that, I actually think you did hold the individuals from the ICB to account at your last meeting. I can certainly recollect those conversations by individuals talking about extraction still going on, outside of that practice because of the inaccessibility of NHS dentistry. And yes, I think from their part, they were taking steps, but it was around the problem of the basic NHS contract for dentistry that they still have no powers to influence. And so it was putting more hygienists, it was putting more dental nurse individuals into practices and trying to do what they could within a framework which they themselves acknowledged wasn't of their construction, and they probably wouldn't have wanted to have started from that position. So they themselves are somewhat limited, and if that's a limitation that is put on them because of that contract, then it's others that the recommendations need to go to, not necessarily the ICB. But having it on your agenda, including potentially, the off-agenda briefing, means you can hold them to account, you can hold their feet to the fire and make all of those representations. And I probably would say back to Councillor Ferguson, yeah, I agree. There's times I think you probably, as a collective group, can be harder on those individuals that come before you to actually make those very points. But on this occasion, I think you did get the point across that there's real suffering out there, and something needs to change. Otherwise, that suffering is going to continue.
Is a concern, and that's why we've kept it on the work programme. And all of the things we just say will come out in the actual to what we do, and whether we have briefings, informal meetings, and then so once we get to the 15th of April 25, we will have the information to be able to really ask the people we invite into the meeting to be able to come up with strong, positive answers, which I think we did get at the last meeting, as Keith has said.
Thanks for that, Chair. I proposed the addition of pension credits to the list of. I proposed the addition of pension credits to the list of those who should get free access. Is that something that the committee needs to vote on, or is it something that just can be added as a addition?
Chairman, if I may, I mean, on the basis that, A to E, there are those statutorily entitled to free care. If we've missed one off and that pension credits are one of those groups that is entitled to free NHS dentistry, then we'll add that one on.
Chairman, just before we move on, can we just clarify, as Councillor Griffiths suggested, we're going to ask the leader to write to the relevant department, person, minister, etc., etc. And then there was also about yourself writing to the persons involved regarding the report. So is that all picked up?
Chairman, I think what I got was there was an amendment to the work programme to put an offer agenda briefing that will look for circulation in September. So yeah, we'll ask the ICB for that. I don't think you're in a position to, at this stage, ask the leader to write to the government minister, because all of your recommendations, as the Constitution said, need to be evidence-based, and I don't think we've undertaken that inquiry at this stage. So therefore, push that forward as a recommendation. If you want to push forward recommendations, they should be evidence-driven by an inquiry in front of you at that meeting. What you're doing is work programming, not looking at evidence.
Okay. Visit we had to the police station, and also when we had the police to come to a meeting as well, and it was family violence and abuse, and we really want to do this through a task and finish group. So I think that it would be good if we could have somebody volunteer to lead that task and finish group. I don't know if we've got anybody who would like to. Would you like to? Okay. Anybody else? Where would just? Okay, so obviously we'll leave that with yourself, Carrie, to obviously to speak to Keith, and then we can get the meetings arranged, and also portfolio holders, and get some sort of plan to move things forward.
Thank you, Chairman. Just that reminding everybody that these need to go on to full council on the 6th of August, and it's full council that will determine whether these items go into your work programme. So anything after that will have to wait until that. Through yourself, we were going to invite the committee to think about establishing those task and finish groups immediately, so not waiting for your next meeting to think about approving a delegation that we can get on with that work, and that would be the opportunity, I think, to perhaps pick up, working with whoever's leading on those various task and finish groups at that point in time.
Okay. And then we'll move on to consider the district-wide sports and activity strategy and the related action plan. Again, this has already been up to consultation, and there's also a report. So once again, we will be this will be coming to a meeting in October, where obviously we will invite the portfolio holder for sports and leisure to come through, corporate director, and then we will actually get a feedback on the way forward on those.
Yes, Chairman, and just to say, I mean, it may be that at that meeting you find that there's something either in the strategy or in the action plan or in the responses from representatives of organisations or active ethics that prompts you to say, do you know what, we want to have a further look at an element of it in more detail, and you might want to set up a task and finish group out of that. So all this is doing is setting in train a process by which you can undertake inquiries. They may, when they come in front of you, take a slightly different direction after you've heard what you've heard. So it's not ruling out that there might be a more in-depth look at certain elements of that strategy or the action plan.
Okay. We'll now move on to the Coastal Communities Unit. As I mentioned before, this was we did put an invite out to them, to Dr. Emily Murray, to attend and give a presentation, but we will be looking at that for later on in the year. And obviously we've got to determine that at a committee to be determined.
If I may, just to say, I think we're trying to. I think the intention, and hopefully you'll support it, is to get that meeting as early as possible. So it won't actually be initially at a meeting of the committee, but we will invite all members of the committee. That, I think, was where, with you, Chairman, had got to. Yeah. To then, again, give you the opportunity as members to say what it is that what you've learned about the work of the Coastal Communities Unit of Essex University, what it's doing, and when or what you might want to either get from them to support other inquiries you're doing, or what you might be able to address with them in a different way. So it's not the end of the story. It's about starting a process and going. You don't know a tremendous amount about that work. It itself is relatively new. Use this as a fact-finding exercise, and then that might trigger further work in your work programme later on in 24, 25, or potentially even into 25, 26. So again, we want to get this one as quickly as possible, and there will be that invite, but the meeting needs to be set up first.
Yeah. Okay. Then the next item to examine joint working with parish and town councils and opportunities for the mutually benefit collaboration to enhance the joint working. And this is primarily to be done through a task and finish group. Sorry?
Thank you, Chairman. Could I just make an addition, please, here on the actual people that are involved? I see we've got the Chief Executive Partnerships teed out, and the NELC. I think also we should have the ELC on there, because they'll have much more of an Essex view rather than the national picture, and a bit beneficial. But also I think we should consider the fact that there's areas of tendering that don't have a town or parish council, and that should be recognised.
It very much is important to recognise, that there are the unparished areas, and I think that issue is being is on a longer term work programme to look at that, and therefore what comes out of this task may well influence that. There's opportunities to look at what town and parish councils can potentially take on how best to work with town and parish councils. And sharing with Graham earlier, I think only today, Oxfordshire, so Oxfordshire County, the district councils, and the Oxfordshire Association of Local Councils has issued its own Oxfordshire Councils Charter about how all tiers of local government can work better together. And that's followed, obviously, a process of getting to that stage. And it gives us an opportunity to, as part of that, again, looking at people to be invited to bring evidence to it, is those people that have been involved in the Oxfordshire experience. What do they see as to be gained from that charter? And how, are they seeing some early wins by the time you actually sort of get them to come along? But it gives us an opportunity to look at a very live document about what prompted that. Are those issues replicated here, and are there opportunities for us? And maybe it is an opportunity, once having looked at it through the task and finish group, through Cabinet here, is recommending onto the County Council to say, do you know what? Here's a lovely example of something that we might want to collaboratively work on across Essex, and it becomes something bigger than just looking at tendering. Yeah.
I think the thing is, well, I think from my experience, this is relatively new, because I would guess that most town and parish councils will all probably face the same issues and same problems. But I'm looking forward really to actually having the meetings with all the different representatives, get a broader pan-tendering view, and I've said this many times in a full council as well, you know, under the last administration and also the new administration. We need, my own personal view, is we need a pan-tendering view, you know? Well, in terms of TDALC, I'm a town councillor as well, so as you said. I'm never, TDALC are there, ELC are there, and I know we do have communications with them. I'm just interested to know, can those communications be more? Like one of the things I think is on the other scrutiny committee is highlighting the hotspots in the district where funding could be available. I'm a great believer in sharing funding ideas and opportunities. Hence the pan-tendering idea, to reach out and just be a bit more, as it says, working together, joint working. I think that's what it's all about. Councillor Ferguson.
I wonder if I might have missed something. Probably. In the final column, it's sort of basically our aspirations and what we'd like to happen. I think there's something about when you work together with all different strands of local government, is ultimately our service users, if you like, our residents are more informed. I think Bill would agree that a lot of the issues that we actually face in some of the areas is the residents don't know who does what. Even now, there's a real tricky middle ground where they say, well, who does this and who does that? And then you get the whole, the district councillor then has to then contact the county council, which is lovely, and it's a really nice, but you get that situation where our residents aren't really aware of what tendering does vis-a-vis what Essex does, vis-a-vis what National Highways do, vis-a-vis this is a really good opportunity to provide a document out of all of this working together to be able to give to all the parish councils for residents, so it's on their website, so that actually very, very clearly, I know it is clear sometimes, but I do feel that a lot of our residents still have this. So what can the parish council do, and what can tendering district council do, and then how the tiers of government, if you like, have the power to do? Because sometimes we get people roll up at a parish council meeting that are going to expect us to be able to overturn a planning application just because we are the council. I think this is a really good opportunity to be ever so much clearer to our residents about who does what and when and how, and this is the process. It's a lovely opportunity to remind our residents just how hard Tendring District Council and the parish councils do work.
And Jim, I think I'd probably also flip that entirely and say it almost doesn't matter who delivers it, as long as collectively we're working for the benefit of those residents. And that, if we can unlock some bits and pieces in that process to deliver better services, whoever's delivering it, then that's got to be the key to it, isn't it? So clarity, but also just having one eye on going, what's best for the residents, is.
So school education and the opportunities there are. And this really is I think it's a follow-on from the task and finish which we did, which came out with an excellent report. So I think this is probably the next level. And I know that Councillor Barrett has sort of intimated that he would like to carry that on as well as task and finish. But obviously that would anybody else who want to come forward with that as well. So yeah, so that will be a it's okay. Carry on. Well, yeah. So
yes, I think that prosperity. Yeah. Did you? Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so we will carry that forward in a task and finish. Okay. Then moving on to the next one is to examine evidence around water quality in the district, including seawater, freshwater courses, and drinking water. Again, this is something which has been very topical. But there are some organisations, obviously local organisations, which again, I think maybe, although it's going to be at a committee meeting on the 28th of January, but I think maybe we could go down the route of having an away day then. Like, you know, you've got like the Harwich Avon Port Authority, Brightonsea Harbour Commissions in my own ward, and just speak to people and then just sort of, you know, again, sort of, Paris, you know.
Yeah. Chairman, I think all members of the committee must use their microphone.
Yeah.
I think they're avoiding that being on the record.
Yeah. Okay, so again, that will be. I think we've actually got some information on that, which has just come through.
Yes.
Today.
Yes, Chairman. Just picking up an article from Cabinet Member for Environment and Coastal for Kings Lynn and West Norfolk Borough Council. They themselves have been highlighting the issue of UK coastal water quality, and they've been looking at the issue and also recognising that as councils, back to the point Councillor Griffiths was making, we have very little powers, but what we can do is use that influencing role to try to get movement. And they've talked about working with particularly the water companies and also through the LGA Coastal SIG or Special Interest Group, which looks at water quality. So it may well be that we might be able to get somebody from that LGA Special Interest Group to come and talk to the Task and Finish group in due course. I'll stop there.
Chairman, if I can come in there, thank you very much. And Keith, I'm not going to say what you think. So I think we did this a while ago. I think remember Groin 44 coming up. So there must be a whole load of work that's there already that perhaps we could pull off the shelf and see what we learned from that exercise and what things maybe we're still pending, and filter that in to the work that we're exploring to do. Thank you.
Yeah,
yes, Chairman. I think you're absolutely right. Where there is existing work, then let's not reinvent the wheel, and let's make sure that we're cleaning up all of that information.
Okay, and then moving on to consider grant funding by the council and others. This is some work being undertaken by the cabinet members. We have actually had one meeting on this, and it was sort of highlighted that there is quite a considerable amount of grant funding to voluntary groups. But I think it was basically just to get a grips with how long that has been ongoing and what are the steps to actually arrive at a decision to carry the grants on or to bring in new grants.
And Chairman, just emphasising what you've just been saying, there was work done by this committee. It was very much initial work, and the committee decided to discontinue any further work because the cabinet were themselves undertaking what was described as a review of grant funding. And therefore, this is the opportunity to look at the outcome of that and also test it against where you initially had got to, which was saying, are we clear about all of those funding streams? What are the similarities and differences of the processes that were involved? The application of subsidy control to those situations, the level of grants, the timescales involved in grant applications and determinations, the oversight of that by councillors, which you found was differential across the organisation. And I think there was a view that should be changed and there should be some element of continuity. It's grant giving, and you can build up an expertise in that, even if you're not the decision maker. The issue of one-off versus ongoing grant, and the different application of grant funding there, and also that gap analysis. Are we, as an organisation, funding particular areas of at one level, and maybe that's meeting need or exceeding need? And are we missing, therefore, opportunities to fund services in the community that really need some support by virtue of the fact that we've not done that gap analysis? So the review is being undertaken by the council's executive, the cabinet, and this is your opportunity to almost hold that process to account and go, well, we thought there were these issues with the existing grant funding arrangements. Have you resolved those? Have you addressed those? Or is there still work to be undertaken? And just, it might be useful as far as, yes, saying you'll deal with that at committee, but you might want in advance of that something like a sort of short inquiry day, where having representatives of organisations coming in and the opportunity for you to talk to them, so that actually at the committee you've got a range of information from those at the coalface. How difficult was it to access that detail of that funding grant schemes? How quickly did those grant schemes open and close, and how was that communicated to them? And just their feeling about the overall process. So there's opportunities for you to do that. So if you're happy, I think some form of inquiry day in advance of the actual committee might actually be beneficial as well.
I wonder if we could just add something onto that, and all of that Keith has just said, but also how useful that money was to them and what they did with it, so that we can really, we can look at their success with the funding that we've approved. I think that's always a nice final sort of, cog in the wheel. The application was made, the funding was granted. It would be lovely to have an overview of a picture of what actually they did with the money, and not a sort of a what have you done, but what have you done? Because we're really interested, and how has that made a difference to their area, or whatever services they're providing. I just think it's really holistic overview of getting some kind of sense of what they actually did with the money, because you can apply for grant funding, and sometimes the funders never actually find out what the money was used for. And it's not about, sticking your finger on top of their head and going, what have you done with our money? It's actually celebrating the fact that there's been this really lovely process. If it was lovely for them, it might have been difficult, it might have been tricky, it might have been too long-winded packing. But, just to have that final bright picture at the end of it, to see if that money was actually used in yeah.
Try not to touch things. When people receive their funding, do they have to provide an end of grant report or an impact assessment? Because that would be really good, wouldn't it? And then every sort of year you could maybe have a celebration of all the, get people to showcase what they've done.
to be absolutely honest with you, I've had a lot of grant funding for all the projects I've done, and every single grant funder, at the end of it, I have to give them to the nearest penny how I spent it and what I spent it on. And it's absolutely quite right. And then they come down and do an inspection. So it is, but what I will say is some of the funders is quite easy to get funding from. Some is very difficult to get funding. And I think the whole process should be eased up for people that need grant funding.
What are you asking me for? You know, whereas we've got to get that two-way, and it's exactly what you were saying, you know, because people should be, you know, proud of achievement, shouldn't they? You know, and obviously, if we tender and have given money, then we should be proud that it's done something good in the community. So, yeah.
Throughout, that, you know, following on the receiving of those grants, that there is an expectation that you will keep us up to date as to how you're developing that project. Yeah.
Especially from TDC, because I've just had some funding because I put a new park in, and every step of the way, I've had to produce everything that I've done, and it's not released until you've done exactly what you said, and it's quite right. So there is a stringent account of what you have to do on all the funding. So, and it's really, it's good. Good.
Chairman, I think the point that I'm taking from all of those comments is actually some form of inquiry day where you are inviting people in to talk about all of that, gives you the opportunity to get all of that from them. Well, how did they find that process? You know, how did they find the stringent nature of it, whether they think it's a good thing or a bad thing? You may be sitting there thinking, well, it's actually still a very important thing, it's public money. But nevertheless, and yes, talking about what they actually achieved with that is something that is quite powerful, because obviously that's about the continuance or not of that. So, but I just
and how that's going to fit in then with if we're going to do the inquiry day, then we need to know that we're not duplicating. So can we get a clarification on that? That will be from the portfolio holder for partnerships,
sure,
I presume.
Yeah.
Just to get up to date where they are. Okay. That's it. So,
just are you happy to submit effectively Appendix A now with the additions, and, you know, going back to the beginning, that was the off agenda briefing on dentistry in September, adding in on the basis that it's pension credits is one of those ones that will be added in, coastal communities, that we'll get that meeting sooner rather than later, on the joint working with parish councils, the EALC, and I would suggest somebody from those people that have been involved in the Oxfordshire Council's Charter authors be involved in that. The corrections, apologies for that, in relation to one or two spelling errors in there, and a potential inquiry or a visit in relation to water quality, or one or two visits to that. Getting the LGA Coastal SIG involved, and a review of existing work or previous work that's been done on water quality. Stop it, Mark. And an inquiry day for grants after we saw an update from the portfolio holder for partnerships. I think the only other thing I would say in relation to that is picking up where we were earlier and what's on Appendix B is off-agenda briefings on those recommendations around social, mental, school mental health, and mainstream and community transport recommendations and the implementation of those. So in the autumn, winter, getting that update from those responsible about what what has actually happened with those recommendations. If you're happy with that, then we'll submit that to full council on that basis.
Yep. Okay.
I think there was
Okay. So just on the work.
If somebody's now mentioned it, then I think we should proposer and seconder, and then just vote on it. But I was accepting that there was a general accord around the room. You're not using your microphones again.
Okay, so on the work programme then, we're going to just some recommendations to request the pre-meeting be arranged ahead of each of the arranged formal meetings of the committee, to enable the members of the committee to consider key lines of inquiry, otherwise assist members to prepare for the coming meeting. These pre-meetings should be after the agenda has been dispatched, but sufficiently ahead of the meeting itself to enable invitees to receive the key lines of inquiry and prepare information to share in relation to these key lines of that inquiry. Pre-meeting arranged ahead of each of the arranged formal meetings.
It can be.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, well, yeah, what we can do. Yeah. We have done it as hybrid before, where we can come in.
We'd probably make them hybrid so that if anybody, Chris likes to come in, particularly in the winter, it helps with his heating bill.
Okay, and then also number two, in order to enable an annual report covering the work of the committee over the last year to be presented to council on the 6th of August 2024, on the head of Democratic Services and Elections be authorised, following consultation with me as chairman of the committee, to finalise that annual report content. So you've had the draft there. That will just be
For that delegation, it might be useful to take the third one as well, and then just a proposer and seconder for the three that Graham is reading out. But just to say the intention is to take this to the next draft, circulate that around to all of you to invite comments. So Graham's not going to take it just unto himself and just agree whatever. He wants to consult with you and make sure that it's the appropriate report on the work of the committee over the last year. But it does need to be finalised in time to get that to full council on the 6th. And just I just wanted to say, just picking up on at full council, the presentation will be between Graham and Paul, who Paul Honeywood as chairman of Resources and Services. So between them, they'll need to just determine who's going to propose, who's going to second.
Yeah. And the last bit is to authorise the head of Democratic Services and Elections to make initial appointments to task and finish groups identified in the committee's work programme. Following approval of the work programme by council and following consultation with the committee's chairman. This is designed to enable the process of seeking nominations to proceed without delay following council on the 6th of August, and with me being able to review the nominations for appointments of the task and finish groups to take place and meeting arrangements put into place.
There's a proposal and a second.
Okay, well done. And second, thank you. All in favour? Yes. Okay, sure. Aye. Okay. Thank you very much for everybody's attendance. And we'll look forward to seeing you at full council on the 6th.
I hereby close.
And I hereby